And just like that, the Aaron Rodgers era appears to be over at One Jets Drive. I'm Glenn Naughton with Jet Nation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. Jay Glazer, NFL Insider. This is not official. The team has not responded with a comment to, according to Rich Cimini. Jay Glazer of, I believe, Glazer's still with Fox Sports, says Aaron Rodgers flew out to the Jets last week following the hiring of Aaron Glenn to discuss his future with the team and departed with the understanding that the team would be moving on. This apparently had something to do, or a fair bit to do, with the new regime wanting Rodgers to be one of 53 and not one guy out on his own, doing his own thing, doing the McAfee interviews, things of that nature. Which is funny because earlier in the day, Rex Ryan, not talking about the future of Aaron Rodgers, but just discussing the Jets, their coaching search, and things of that nature, said that when he was interviewed, some of the questions being asked had to do with, do you think Rodgers can be the face of this franchise? Do you think Rodgers can be a guy who's counted on to show up to OTAs and training camp? Do you like Rodgers being on McAfee? So this was apparently a thing ownership was feeling before the head coach was hired. So where this came from, I would imagine Woody. Rich Cimini said a couple of months ago that it was pretty obvious Woody wanted Aaron Rodgers gone. So while he did technically leave it up to the coaching staff, he clearly went in the direction of a coaching staff that was going to lay down some rules that might mean Aaron Rodgers would be departing. So the Jets re-enter quarterback purgatory. That was fun, wasn't it? That was wow, you blinked. You traded for Aaron Rodgers, you blinked, and he was gone. The Jets technically get 2 seasons from Rodgers, plays four snaps in week 1 of 2023, gone for the year, comes back last year, 5-12. So the Jets, they give up what? They gave up a 1 and a 3 and tens of millions and tons of roster spots, and they paid Lazard and they paid Cook and they paid Devontae and they paid Turner and all these guys. They brought in all of Aaron's guys. So what? They probably spent 50, 60, 70 million on Aaron and his friends. They spent the premium draft picks, and now he's gone. And now they don't have a quarterback again. Devontae Adams, I would expect he will be released. He's got a gigantic cap hit that will free up a ton of money, which will sort of offset the Rodgers cap hit. I'm assuming the Jets will take all of the Rodgers cap hit this year, the $42 million, and then with Devontae, you let him go. I believe that saves you 36 or 38, somewhere in that neighborhood, so you can recoup a bunch of that money. Jets fans are inevitably going to be torn on this. I've said several times, I don't feel very strongly either way. If the Jets kept him or didn't keep him, I could understand the rationale. If you're keeping Aaron Rodgers, it's because you don't have a better option. I mean, Tyrod Taylor's due $9 million. Give him the ball, win 5 games again. And how many does he play? When was the last time Tyrod Taylor showed any durability? He gets hurt. He plays a couple of games a year and he gets hurt. So you've got Rodgers. Let's see. Connor says the Jets sadly supposed to use post June 1st. Supposed to? What do you? I'm not sure what you mean by supposed to. Is that what they're rumored to be doing, Connor? Did I miss that? I literally this is what the Jets do to me. Well, I can't blame the Jets, but I will anyway. All day I'm sitting home doing nothing. I'm watching pregame coverage of the Super Bowl. I got that on the TV. I got college prospects on the damn laptop. I'm watching Syracuse and Michigan and watching all these prospects all day, sitting home doing nothing. And I'm like, you know what? Super Bowl kicks off in a couple hours. Let me go grab some food that I can shove in my face while I watch the game. I drive up to the wing place. It's like 25 minutes from my house. I'm paying for my wings. I look at my phone. There's the Jay Glazer tweet. I'm like, God, can't hop on live right away. I got to get my wings, wait for those, get in the car, drive home. And so here I am now talking. So if there was something, so Connor's saying they're rumored to. I hadn't seen that. I know it's an option. We've talked about the many different options the Jets have. If they're gonna, listen, you're not winning anything this year. I think the right move would be to take the huge hit this year and move on. But Connor's saying it's rumored that they're going to take the hit, 14 this year, which that's the Jets for you. QAA says he's pissed, and a lot of people look. A lot of people are going to be pissed, and a lot of people are going to be happy. Like I said, I'm like whatever. I don't believe, and this is not a knock on Aaron Glenn. I can't say enough times I love the Aaron Glenn hire, but I don't think the Jets were going to do anything special with a rookie head coach, rookie coordinator, going into this year. But if you and listen, is that premature? Of course. Listen, maybe they're going to make a bevy of moves that nobody saw coming, and they're going to build a super roster. Sure. But in all reality, looking at the how they don't have much cap space, they do have several needs. They would have to hit on a bunch of picks to be day one contributors. I just didn't see the playoffs being a thing this year. But Rodgers gave them the best shot to make the playoffs, in my opinion. But now he's gone, so now it's Tyrod, and now that's really no shot at the playoffs. Now listen, you go out and trade for a guy. You got, like I said, go get J.J. McCarthy, who, yes, unproven, absolutely. But as many people have said, he would be QB1 in this class. And not only would he be QB1 in this class, instead of getting a young QB1 in the class, you're getting a guy who's got a year of good coaching under his belt, which Jets quarterbacks generally don't get. So maybe you trade for McCarthy and you catch, you get a good young quarterback. But other than that, it's Tyrod, Kirk Cousins. Rich Cimini talked about that earlier. Someone brought that up on this show a few weeks ago, and I said, no way. But Rick Spielman's in the building. He signed Kirk Cousins to a huge deal previously. Maybe they feel like what Atlanta did with him. Maybe they didn't. Cousins just didn't look good, no matter what you want to say about Atlanta. But you've got, you're going to trade for Derek Carr. Remember that rumor a couple years ago? The Jets were, Carr reportedly wanted the Jets a couple of years ago when they went for Rodgers. That was why I can't remember who, because it is a couple of years ago now, but I do remember somebody saying that was the reason why Carr's agent leaked that he was about to sign with New Orleans. Like, they wanted it out there. They wanted other teams. They wanted the Jets to see it, and for the Jets to say, we better pounce, like now or never with this guy. Jets didn't do it. A lot of fans were happy about that. I said at the time, I'm worried because you might only get a year or two out of Aaron, and then you got nobody. Carr may not be, he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, but you'll have him for a few years, and your quarterback position will be at the very least, stable. So New Jersey Lawrence says Vikings are not going to give Darnold the deal. Didn't the coach say the other day we're gonna move forward and Sam Darnold's going to be a big part of that? I know that doesn't guarantee anything, but I think it might be a little early to say whether or not they'll give him that big deal. So anyway, Rodgers reportedly due to depart. I just saw someone mention Justin Fields in the chat. Look, Justin Fields can run. He's not an atrocious option, but I felt like watching him this year was one of those cases where teams were winning despite the quarterback play. Pittsburgh, that smash mouth, that running game using him as a runner. But that being said, I could see the Jets making a play for him. I wouldn't love it, but it'd be better than Tyrod Taylor, at least in my opinion. Just again, Tyrod, I've always liked Tyrod, but his durability is a big enough concern for me that it's like you better have another guy. With Aaron Rodgers gone, you better have someone else there. Let's see. Borderless Logistics says, I say we get Winston for a year. Winston, I said that a few months ago, especially if the Jets were gonna go get Todd Monken because Winston had one of his best years under him. I feel like without Todd Monken, Winston is just a guy who's going to throw you 30 interceptions, not going to move you anywhere. Yeah, and now I get that he's playing up to the cameras in recent weeks and months. Like he's figured out, like, I'm a marketable guy. I'm a likable guy. I can be funny and silly and make fun of my interceptions and all that. It's like, is this guy, I don't know. I feel like he's starting to look at his life after football by trying to become a media personality while he's playing football. Again, you could, another guy that you could do worse, but what's the goal in signing him? I don't know. Let's see. Yer says, I'm with you, not for or against it, but then we have to nail QB next year. Yeah, they're not. I mean, it's so early, that I mean, they will be in position to draft one next year, I would imagine. But them getting it right, I don't know. I mean, look, I understand it's the honeymoon phase and people want to be optimistic, but I got people getting mad at me because I don't like a running back as a quarterback's coach. Because I understand there was going to be a time, and I understood that time could be this year, that they would bring on a young quarterback that they would have to develop. And you have Jordan Travis, who you want to develop. And let's say you draft a quarterback this year. Let's say you get Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or somebody like that, Curtis Rourke, who's not young, but he would be young to the league. Let's say you get a guy like that. I wanted a quarterback's coach who has played quarterback, teaching him to play quarterback. The Jets have brought in a quarterback's coach who's on his, fourth team in 5 years. Just keeps getting hired and fired. Jets have picked him up, and he's a running back, and he's going to be the guy teaching your young quarterback how to play in the league. What's that? What is it, that line from that movie? Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how that works out. Let's see. QAA says Winston's a major. Hell no. Yeah, like I said, I was on board with that a couple months ago with Monken, but then just seeing Winston, I can't remember which game it was. I watched a couple more of his games, and I was like, you know what? Maybe not. He's too silly, not very good. With Monken, I could have lived with it. Sorry, I've got a visitor here. With Monken, I could have lived with it, but without him, come on, get down. With Monken, you can live with Winston. Without him, I'd rather not. I'd rather not go that direction. Maybe Fields could get better reuniting with Garrett Wilson. Let's see if Garrett Wilson's around. I mean, Garrett Wilson has been miserable for 3 years now, and now you're going to be asking him to play with who at quarterback? Hey, we're going to have you play with Tyrod, who's stellar, who's solid quarterback, but who's behind him when he gets hurt? Because there's no logical reason to expect Tyrod Taylor to play 17 games if he is your starter next year. I would expect him to come back. I would expect him to start, or at least I would expect him to have a shot to start. But we shall see. QAA, I wanted to at least make the damn playoffs this season. Didn't we all? And listen, one of the great questions, well, is it great? Nobody cares. One of the questions a lot of Jets fans will forever be asking is, what would have happened if Rodgers hadn't ruptured that Achilles last year? That defense was still elite. I believe number one in the NFL in points allowed per game. If you had a healthy Aaron Rodgers doing his thing, last year might have been special. But that doesn't happen to the Jets. Nothing special there. Milroe's interesting. Listen, Milroe throws a great deep ball. Insanely athletic, will be one of the best running quarterbacks the second he's drafted. One of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL. But the lack of consistency with the shorter intermediate stuff, the underneath stuff, the turnovers, the fumbles, that just, to me, I'm not saying I wouldn't take him, but for people saying he's a round 2 guy, I just don't see it. I've seen people say he could sneak into round 1. And I look at that and I'm like, if he played at, anywhere but Alabama, would they be talking about him this way? Sorry, my dog. Ken Peters says Steelers will keep Fields, sign Russell Wilson. That was a report earlier on the pregame, is that the Steelers will like to keep one of those two. I don't know which one they're going to keep. I guess, Ken, you're saying the Jets should sign Russell Wilson? I guess it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, considering how he played last year, and considering the Jets' options, which are none, really. Wentz could be someone to look at, says 14 years. I disagree. Carson Wentz has not looked like an NFL quarterback for a very long time. I'm trying to come up with a word there. Has not looked adequate, has not looked competitive for a long time. So I don't know about that. QAA, I do not want Russell Wilson. Yeah, again, but QAA, here's the thing. Who's the other alternative? Like, realistic alternative. Like, if you're giving me a list of guys to choose from, and Russell Wilson is one of them, and all the other guys are worse, then it's like, all right, fine, give me Russell Wilson. But if I could trade for J.J. McCarthy, then do that. Cam Ward, you're not going to be able to draft him. If I'm drafting a project quarterback, like I said, Curtis Rourke, I don't see the Jets liking him. Little older, not the most mobile guy. Kev Chata says Pete Carroll likely go after Russell Wilson. That'll be interesting to see. That'll be interesting to see because the Raiders need a quarterback, and that could fit. Josh Beasley says, as a Packers fan, I'm sorry this didn't work out for you guys. We kind of lost this. We kind of lost this trade with the first round pick we got from you guys. Lucas Van Ness, terrible. Has Van Ness been terrible, really, John? I liked him a lot coming out of Iowa. A lot of hype, strong guy, good bull rusher. Thought he would be solid, but Josh here telling me he's been terrible. I honestly haven't seen Van Ness play since getting there. Eddie says, dumb decision. This is what happens when you hire a defensive coach. They're clueless when it comes to QBs. Well, again, Eddie, I'm not going to jump on the fence, or I'm not going to jump off the fence onto either side too strongly one way or the other. I get the logic in the decision. I get the logic in wanting to move on. I apologize. Get down. I apologize for my animal. I didn't feel like bringing him back would be a great idea. I didn't feel like letting him go would be like there's plus and minus to either one, basically. And the Jets went with the let's move on, let's get rid of the guy. And again, this from the couple of tweets I've seen, this is what it claims to be, or the issue seems to be the Jets going off of what Rex said about what he was asked when he was there for his interview, and what others are saying right now, that the issue was Rodgers wanting to be his own guy, not one of the 53, but sort of out on his own doing his interviews and things like that. I don't see the huge deal. Now, look, if they think training camp and OTA was going to be an issue, I kind of get it. Tennessee #1 open for business. Yeah, that's going to be when you're trading up for a franchise quarterback. You're not going to have a one for a couple years. You're going to give up twos. You might give up a player. I just can't see it happening. Yeah, let's see. Financially, they can't keep him. There's just no way. I take it you're talking about Devontae. Because, yeah, Devontae Adams' cap hit is enormous. If you couple that with the Rodgers cap hit, no matter what it is, no matter how they split it up. I'm just going to hop on the old Twitter here and see if anyone is saying anything of note or worth bringing up. Antoine Staley of the Daily News retweeting the Jets video of Aaron Glenn saying, this is not about Aaron. This is from his introductory presser when he met with the press pool afterwards. This is not about Aaron Rodgers. It's about the roster. So that's kind of in line with what's being said right now. Let's see if we have anything else. Zach Rosenblatt says the last time the Jets did a full revamp head coach GM QB was 2015 when they brought in Todd Bowles, Mike McCagnon, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. They went 10-6 that year, their last winning season. Let's see. Dan Leberfeld says, the insiders can talk fresh start all they want, but you will eventually get fired if you don't have a QB in the league. I've seen this script over and over again. Rinse, repeat. Let's see who the Jets turn to with their, quote, fresh start. That's kind of where I am. Like, all right, people, if you're excited he's gone, great. Who you replacing him with? Connor Hughes says Aaron Rodgers was open to reworking his contract. He talked about this on the record. Money was not a factor. I kind of said all along, if Rodgers wanted to play, I thought he might rework his deal. And I think I was even saying that before he commented on it. Because if enough teams don't want you and you want to stay, like Rodgers is close to breaking some more milestones, some more records, climbing the all-time list for stats. I'm sure he would love to do all that, but he's got to be in the league to do it. And if there aren't a ton of teams knocking down his door, then, the Jets were one of very few options. Let's see. Yeah, 18 starts for Rodgers as a Jet, 5 wins, 1 Achilles tear, and countless headlines. That's Rich Cimini of ESPN. And by the way, the interesting note from Cimini regarding the Jets front office practices and the hiring of Rick Spielman. that there were some candidates who weren't happy with the way the Jets were doing things during the, in bringing in a new GM. People feel like they went in a direction where, and I love Spielman. I said he should have been the GM. But you bring in Rick Spielman to say, hey, Rick, who should we hire? And Rick says, hire that guy, Darren Moogie. And the Jets hire him, and Darren Moogie goes, now let's hire the guy who told you to hire me. He told you to give me the job. Now I'm going to give him a job. I'm not saying it's not on the up and up. I'm not saying they're not deserving candidates and all that. But I can see where some people would look at that and go, hang on a second. Did the Jets just get worked over? Did the Jets just hire a guy to pick a guy who then hired that guy? I get it. And again, to me, Spielman's qualified. Spielman, Moogie, we don't know. But Spielman, I think I said from the outset when this GM hunt started, I said bring him in and hire him. Bring him in to advise you on your hire. But I hope they hire Rick Spielman. Eddie McGuire says there is absolutely no one to replace Aaron Rodgers. No one. It looks that way, Eddie. But like I said, if I'd feel good about things if they traded for McCarthy. Justin Fields wouldn't do it for me all that much. If Cam Ward were to fall a couple spots and they trade up to 3 or 4 to get him, I would love Cam Ward. Been a big Cam Ward guy forever. There are some look. I think Jackson Dart's a good player, but I think he's a few years away. I rewatched some Curtis Rourke this week. Really liked him during the year, and then kind of cooled on him. I think because you just get away from that prospect and you're watching other prospects. But rewatch Curtis Rourke, and I'm like, I think he can be developed into a player. But here's the thing, though. Here's the problem: is the rarity. Like, go throughout the league, look up and down the league. And most of your elite quarterbacks are first-round picks. Josh Allen, first-round pick. Lamar Jackson, first-round pick. Joe Burrow, first-round pick. Patrick Mahomes, first-round. Like, the 3 guys I just named, those are probably the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL this year. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. You can make a case. Everybody talking about Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who deserved it, the MVP. I'm looking at Joe Burrow like, I think that guy deserved it. But either way, all first-round picks. Yes, you do get the exceptions, but by and large, you're finding your star quarterbacks in the early rounds. But Tom Brady listen, you don't run your franchise based on outliers. You don't go, well, we can just take a quarterback in the 6th. That's where the best quarterback ever came from. You don't do that. You got to do what's practical and sensible. And that means taking QBs early. And the best guys go in the first round, or most of the best guys go in the first round. So the Jets are not going to get one in the first round this year without trading up, which would cost a ransom. But I think the next best option is to hope for Minnesota, sign Arnold, and put McCarthy on the old market there. McCarthy with an injured knee over a healthy Fields. McCarthy's knee should be fine by the time the season starts. And I think he's a more accurate passer than Justin Fields. I get, and Dylan Terraman and I went back and forth on this a million times pre-draft. And obviously I was wrong because I said I thought Zach Wilson would be the better pick. They both stink, but Wilson has been worse. But these quarterbacks, man, these college guys who are playing with borderline NFL rosters like Ohio State does and like Alabama does. And they just have dudes running wide open. And they got windows that you will never see in the NFL on a consistent basis. Like, yeah, if a quarterback or if a corner trips and falls on his face, then that's when you see that type of window in the NFL. If a corner pulls a hamstring mid-route, you'll see that kind of window that you see at Ohio State. When you're throwing at Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. But that's if you're not hitting tight window throws, then it scares me off a little bit. And that's what we saw with Justin Fields. Even I said the same thing about Trevor Lawrence. I felt like he made more NFL type throws than Fields, but a lot of his throws were a lot like Fields, wide open receivers, where it's like, what value are you getting from watching this? What read does he have to make? He looks up and he's got to do 15 yards past the DB. Pretty easy decision. Don't have to be the most accurate throw in the world, and there's so much of that. That's why I preferred Zach, because Zach didn't have that luxury, but he stunk anyway. So that's but with McCarthy obviously had a loaded team at Michigan, but I don't think anybody's receivers are as good as Ohio State's. What those guys have had to throw to over the years, that they've really become wide receiver. Emeka Egbuka this year. You had Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. You had, as I said, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. Like, these are all first round bona fide legit receivers. Michigan didn't have that. And don't get me wrong, Michigan had some good receivers, but nobody that good. At least off the top of my head. Someone's going to jump in the chat and remind me of somebody that I'm forgetting. Let's see right here back in the chat. Kev says red flags for a QB whose stock skyrockets after his college career ends. That was Zach Wilson. Yeah, that's not true though, Kev. That was there was talk. I forget who it was. Former Heisman Trophy quarterback watching. I think it was the first time I heard Zach Wilson's name early in his final year in college. And it was a former. Might have been Andre Ware. Is Andre Ware calling games nowadays? It was a former first-round pick quarterback who was like, this kid, Zach Wilson from BYU, is good enough to be a first-rounder. And we're talking week 3 or 4 of the season. So I think some fans may have only become aware of him after the season, but during the year, there were people talking about him that way. Aller didn't look good in the playoffs. Yeah, he didn't. He didn't, but I don't. He's gonna have an entire season this year. I know he's got a good shot to be QB1. I'm also not all out on Beck. I think Carson Beck can be a good quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the top quarterback in the class. Any word on Jordan Travis recovery? Good question, Rob. The Jets said they said very little on him during the year until very late in the season. Jeff Ulbrich was asked about him and said that he had a setback. But the thing that bothered me, he didn't say if it was a physical setback in terms of injury or if he had a setback in whatever. If it was the rehab, I forget. There were two different things going on. I mean, I don't know. There could have been a setback. He wouldn't have been allowed to practice with the team. He would only be. It must have been physical. It must have been the injury. So that was it. They really haven't given updates. All they've said was during the year that he had a setback. They didn't say how serious. They didn't give a time frame on recovery, or if it was a minor setback and he was set back a week. So the short answer is no. There have not been updates on him. Wild Wave says, "What's up, Glenn?" Right decision by Glenn. Again, I can get on board either way. I wonder if this gives the new regime a free pass for year one. Like, hey, we're brand new. We just walked in the door, and by the way, we don't have a quarterback. So what do you want us to do? Sure, we'll make some calls. We'll try to trade for somebody, but we're not going to give up the farm. So if we can't trade for a JJ McCarthy or somebody like that, then we're just gonna have to go to battle with the injury-prone Tyrod Taylor. And once he gets hurt, we're gonna hand it over to the inexperienced Jordan Travis. Probably win 5-6 games again, and go into next year trying to draft a quarterback. So we'll see. Let's see. Ken Peters says, "So what if your QB is a 2026 first, second, etc. is meaningless? You're just listed off the number ones. Are you saying trade all the draft capital you have to get a quarterback? I mean, listen, if you think they're worth it, fine. And I love Cam Ward. I've said a million times that he was a guy, that I talked up years ago, said he was someone to watch. I liked his tools. I liked the fact that he was a guy who could do a lot of things well. I like the poise, good enough arm strength. He could run. But is he worth 2 1s and a 2 and a player? If the Jets feel like he is, then go ahead and do it. I just don't know that a new GM is going to walk in the door and give away several, first and second round picks. That Charles Henderson says bad decision. So this is what we're gonna be. Tony the GM, Zach throws all over the place. I know people rewrite history on him, but he was I think he had the number one completion percentage or number one in the country in big time throws from PFF. And that's throws like on the move, distance, pressure situations, like a lot of criteria for that pressure throw category. And they rate every player in the country. Zach Wilson was number one. But either way, that's neither here nor there. He'll sign with somebody as a free agent to battle for a second string job again after Sean Payton carried him as a QB3 this year. But this is a decision that Jets fans are going to be torn on. Jets fans are going to argue. They're going to go back and forth. It's not going to matter. Decision's been made. Rodgers is gone. The Rodgers era produced 6 wins, one of which it's weird, the win-loss record thing, isn't it? Aaron Rodgers gets credit for the opening day win last year, despite getting knocked out after a couple plays. Zach Wilson played the rest of the way. Special teams won the game for them, and Rodgers gets the W. So Aaron Rodgers finishes his Jets career 6-12, completed 62.9% of his passes, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 1.9% INT ratio. Not terrible, but just not good enough. And listen, I think it's clear. I think the most valid case you could make for bringing Rodgers back would be the fact that he played better late in the season. So, it's water under the bridge. It doesn't matter. Tony says he never hit a go. I'm pretty sure he hit some go balls. Who's the receiver the receiver he had the falling out with over the girlfriend? He was like one pick away from Mr. Irrelevant with the Redskins. I saw him hit him on several deep balls. I mean, look, if we drew a map of the field, I'm sure we could find routes that a lot of guys didn't throw if we counted every single blade of grass. But that wasn't his issue in the pros, Tony. His issue in the pros was that he got happy feet. He got scared because he was constantly under pressure. He was bailing when pressure wasn't there, and he wasn't able to hit swings and screens. So, I mean, those were his biggest issues. I'm not, I saw some of the throws he made against USC, against Tennessee, to start the Navy game. He hit on a deep ball. Zach Wilson made tons of big throws in college. As a pro, like I said, happy feet, and he couldn't hit the shorts. He couldn't hit the easy stuff. And how are you going to move the ball if you can't hit a swing pass for an offense that was struggling as it was? So, I mean, again, there's no point in us sitting here arguing about Zach Wilson. The guy made a ton of big throws in college. He was being talked about as a first-round pick early in that season of his final year. And he did play like a first-round pick. The numbers were there. The film was there. Like I said, I'm sure if we work hard enough, we'll find throws that every guy didn't make. But he's gone anyway. Let's see. Wilson, yeah, that's not true either. I mean, you could say that, Lauren. He made throws against garbage defenses, but you know what? He had garbage offense too. How many of the guys he was throwing to are NFL players right now? But he did it against USC and he did it against Tennessee, who had far more talent than BYU did. Their defenses were far more talented than BYU's offense was, and Zach Wilson managed to do that. And as I always say, who did Steve McNair beat? My dog is determined to be on today. Who did Steve McNair beat at Alcorn State? Right? I mean, talent is talent. You're going to have guys who play at schools that aren't very good and come to the NFL. Some are going to succeed. Some are going to fail. Either way, Rodgers is gone. Jets have to come up with a plan at quarterback. Will it be trade? Will it be draft? Might be both. Maybe you trade for a guy. Maybe you draft a guy. And let the draft pick battle it out with Jordan Travis for the final roster spot, because Tyrod Taylor and his $9 million probably aren't going anywhere. So that would be, like I said, we're back in quarterback purgatory, folks. Jets do not have a QB who can be relied upon to do anything other than complete a few passes before getting hurt. And then, and does it give this new regime a free chance, a free shot at saying, hey, we only won 4 games that first year, but We didn't have a quarterback, Woody. Who knows? We'll see what happens from this point on. Let's hope Darren Moogie is the genius that many Jets fans seem to believe he is already. I saw the One Jets Drive episode, and they talked about how fast he moved up the food chain in Denver, and it's very impressive. Don't get me wrong. I say all the time, if you're a guy who can hang around and not get fired as one regime and comes in after another and another and another, and you manage to hang around, that's pretty impressive. But we don't know. We don't know what we got at GM. We don't know what we got at quarterback. We don't know what we got at OC. We don't know what we got at QB coach. So lots of question marks and lots of guys in key positions that you hope the Jets got it right. We'll know soon enough. Rodgers is gone. Offseason's about to kick off. In what? What do we got? 8:30. So in about 6 hours, the NFL season will end. A new champion will be crowned. I want to. First of all, I don't care who wins this game. I don't. Whatever. But I feel like Philly's going to pull it off. But then I just keep getting back to there's going to be a call. There's going to be a play that's going to turn this game, and the Chiefs are going to win it. So I'll pick. I like Philly to win. Put it this way, if it's a cleanly officiated game, I think the Eagles win the game. If the refs get involved, as they often do for Kansas City, I think the Chiefs win the game. So we shall see. Have a good one, Jets fans. Aaron Rodgers' era comes to an end. Worst trade in Jets history? I think you can make that case. Have a good one, Jets fans.